I absolutely love making bread. And so on today's episode, we're going to talk about epi bread made easy. This is a perfect bread for when you have company and it's very easy to serve. Welcome to this show. My name is Beverly Fells Jones. I am the Silver Fox of Consciousness, and I just love baking bread. So today I wanted to share with you one of my favorites. It's called epi bread. Now, it's a type of artisan bread which is often made in a French style bakery, and it consists of a series of yeast rolls that are interconnected, and it's made to look like a stalk of wheat. Now, as you want it, you just pull off a piece. Now, what I love about this bread is that when you make it right, it has a really crusty outside, just like French bread or a baguette will. And so today, I just want to show you how I make epi bread. Now, I told you I am not a chef. I am not a trained pastry person or a baker. I'm just the person who absolutely loves tinkering in her kitchen and learning how to do different types of food. And so today's recipe is for epi bread. We have some very basic ingredients for our epi bread, and I realized that I didn't take a snapshot of all of them. So the recipe is in the description below. But we're going to start with 3¼ cups of all-purpose flour, 1½ teaspoons of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of active dried yeast, and 12 ounces of warm water. Basic recipe that I'm using for all of my breads today because this is just a very simple recipe and it's basic French bread. So what are we going to do with this? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to mix all of these together. So you're going to put the flour in the bowl and you're going to add the yeast and the salt and stir the yeast and the salt very well into the flour. This incorporates all of that and mixes it well within it. It's spread throughout. Now you can always add a little seasoning every now and then. I will add about a 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of Italian seasoning to my bread. Just an idea if you want to do that. So you mix up the flour, the salt, and the yeast, and then you make a hole in the middle of the flour, and you add the 1½ cups or the 12 ounces of water to the bowl. Stir it thoroughly. Mix it up really good. I want that yeast and salt all spread through and the water even. So you're going to have a really sticky dough. I mean, absolutely sticky. Every now and then, if I need to move the dough a little bit with my hands, I wet my hands under the faucet and have wet hands, and then I move the door. Listen to me. I move the dough, and so therefore it doesn't stick to my fingers. But now you have a very sticky dough. Once you finish doing that and mixing it up, I always leave it in the same bowl. I don't switch bowls. Now, some of the gurus might have you switch bowl and put a little oil in the bottom. I leave it in the same bowl. I put a lid on top of the bowl, and usually it's just my plate. You see my plate here. And that plate was from my dad's collection, so he had the taste to buy that particular plate. Anyway, take that plate and I put it in a non-drafty warm location. Now, some of you can put yours in the oven. I cannot because my daughter lives with me and she will just as soon turn on the oven and not know that I had my bread in there. So what I do is I put it in the microwave over top of my oven. So even if she's cooking, there's some moisture and warmth coming up in there. But I don't turn the microwave on. Please understand, it's just a warm spot. You may have another warm spot within your home where you can put your bread and your dough. Now, here's where it gets really neat. You want to let that bread rise anywhere from 8 to 24 hours. Now you can do it faster. You can use a full teaspoon of active dry yeast and let it double. But what happens is when you let your yeast ferment, when you let the dough ferment, it activates the gluten in the flour and it does quite a bit of fermentation during that time frame, and it helps you digest that bread better. It just gives you a better taste. So now it's been fermenting. So after that time frame has passed, what you want to do is you'll bring that bread down out of the microwave. So you can just make this at night and do it the next morning. Sometimes I have when I made it just before I left the house in the morning, and then when I got in the evening, I did the bread. So you bring the bread down, and now it might be all the way up to the top of your bowl, right? But you deflate it by stirring it. So a wet spoon, a lot of times a plastic spoon works. I like a wooden spoon. And stir it down and stir it down and just get all that air out of there. Now, the next step after that is that you're going to shape this into loaves. Now, in this recipe, I shaped it into 3 loaves. Just think of 3 baguettes, 3 long loaves. So I divided up the bread dough into thirds, each one of them approximately the same size, same weight. Now, I didn't weigh it on a scale. Some people go that far, but not me. I just eyeballed it and got my 3 loaves of bread. I decided that 2 loaves were going to be epi and 1 loaf was just going to be a regular baguette. So I formed those 3 loaves. Now, here comes the fun part. Now you can let it rest once you form those 3 loaves, and I form them on parchment paper. That way I don't have to worry about when I'm slipping it in the oven and how is getting cooked and that kind of thing and losing its shape. So I use parchment paper and I set things on the parchment paper. With each baguette you can have a shape there that you can use. Now, I have baguette pans. I buy every gadget in the world. So I've got baguette pans. And the one I'm going to wind up using a baguette pan. But for the other 2, they are shaped in a baguette, but now I'm going to cut them. And so you need some kitchen shears. These are just regular scissors that I use exclusively in the kitchen. And what you're going to do is at the very base of the dough, you're going to angle the scissors down as you see in the pictures and cut all the way, almost all the way through. You're going to leave like a 1/4 of an inch of dough between your scissors and the parchment paper because you don't want to cut all the way through. You just want to leave enough so that it's attached. Once you cut that one piece off, you're going to lift it from the point and move it to the left side. Just kind of turn it to the left. Then you go up a little bit above that one that you just cut. Do it and make another deep cut and move that one to the right, and then to the left, and to the right, and to the left, and to the right, and you wind up with this look of having a wheat stalk. Okay? Now, there's a number of things you can do. So you can sit and let these sit and cover them up with a towel or another piece of parchment paper or whatever. The towel should be damp, so you wet it, wring it out, and put it over the bread so that they can rise, so they can gain shape. And during that period when they are rising, they are also developing more flavor. That's what you want. You want a flavorful loaf of bread. You don't want something that just tastes like flour. Anyway, so once that's done, you can melt some butter and put over the top of the bread. That makes it soft. You can take some warm water and brush it over the top of the bread. That makes it a little bit harder. Or you can take an egg, whip it up, and then put that over the top of the bread. It will help it be a little harder on the outside, but it will also give it a sheen. Now here's my secret. You ready? A secret to these crusty loaves of bread in my oven. Now, my oven has a thing called a hearth kit, and it is a clay sides and bottom that I found in Cincinnati, Ohio, many years ago. I went online. The company is no longer in business, but this makes your oven kind of like a regular oven, like a pizza oven, or with retaining heat. But here's what you can do. You can get a pizza stone. You can get unglazed tile from your outdoor store, your tile store. You can get I found one that was a Mexican piece of tile, and it was really thick. And you wash it real good with just water. It's got to be unglazed. And then you bake it at 400 degrees for about an hour when you first get it. And this is like the initial seasoning for it and getting everything, baking stuff out. And then you can use that stone, that tile, for your baking. But pizza stone, or if you can happen to get a hearth kit, you are in great shape. So you heat that up. But I still haven't told you the secret for getting a really crusty piece of bread. Now, some people will tell you to get a spray bottle and with clear water, distilled water, and spray the wall. Spray, and then close it up real quick. That's a good idea. Doesn't give you enough steam, though, for your oven. That's what helps make it crusty. But if you've got an oven-safe frying pan, particularly a cast iron frying pan or a cast iron Dutch oven, or something that can sit on the bottom of the oven when you first turn the oven on and it's heating, you're going to put that frying pan or Dutch oven or whatever that heat enabled pan is, but I recommend it's going to be a cast iron pan. So you're heating your oven up to 425 degrees, really nice and hot. Sometimes I make it 450, but 425. That frying pan is in there the whole time while it's heating up. In the meantime, you're shaping the loaves, and now you're letting them rise. And you let them rise for at least 30 to 45 minutes before putting them in the oven. So you slide the bread into the oven on the parchment paper and on your stone. All right. So your stone, your pizza stone, or whatever it is, because it gives, that stone is in there hot and it gives that bread a brown bottom. So you really want to have that. You take the bread in there, and then, okay, here's the guy. Here it is. You put a cup and a half of ice in that frying pan and close the door. Yes, at least a cup and a half of ice into the frying pan. That's why it has to be an say frying pan or oven stays things so that when you put the ice in there, it won't warp the pan. It won't cause the pan to have a problem. And so for me, it's a cast iron frying pan. And I throw that ice in there, close the door, and that place is steamed up. And sometimes I throw in 2 cups of ice. I want lots of steam. And if you've got a convection oven, you can turn on have it set up with the convection running. So to circulate the steam and circulate the hot air on that bread. You're going to allow that to stay in the oven, about 20 to 30 minutes. You've got to keep an eye on it, but you want to get it to it's a nice golden brown. You can make it, mine I didn't let get super brown this time, but you can let it get as brown as you like. Just don't burn it. All right. And then you can pull it out of the oven. You can coat it with some butter. You don't want to use the egg yolk anymore because that's raw. So you want to coat it with a little butter. That'll give it a shine. And if you can wait, I very a lot of times, well, I just can't wait, right? You need to wait at least 15 minutes for the bread to cool. Once the bread has cooled, then you can break off a piece and slather it in butter and put some jelly on it if you want. But this is like an awesome bread. Now, what made me do this bread? Well, there was a bakery up in Denton, Texas, that I would stop in when I went to a networking meeting, and they made the epi bread. And they made it nice and long. It was at least as long as a regular baguette would be in the grocery store. Then I went back. I wasn't there for a while. I went back and it was shorter. It wasn't as long as it used to be, but it was the same price. The last time I went to purchase it, it was half the size it used to be, but it was the same price. I was not happy. I would rather keep the same length that they had in the beginning and raise the price. I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid. And when it went to that price and it was half the size, I could buy two, but I said no. I know that they're making it for the pocketbook of their customers, but I just didn't like it. And so I decided to go online and look it up and see. And actually, I think my epi bread tastes better. So comment below if you decide to make this recipe and let me know how it went, whether you decided to add some flavor to it. But in the meantime, give me thumbs up or give me a thumbs down, whichever one you feel that this recipe did for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit the bell so that you'll be notified when I decide I'm going to upload another video. My schedule is fluctuating right now. In fact, I've got some new kind of stuff coming up in my main, I'll call it my main business, but Wednesdays is, it's eclectic alchemy with cooking, gardening, sewing, whatever I'm feeling like doing that much, or taking a trip, going camping, whatever it may be. But thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.